BTB listeners, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Listen, if this episode inspires you, do me a favor, take 5 seconds to shoot me a like and subscribe to the podcast. There are several more exciting guests that are in the pipeline, and I just can't thank you enough for your continued support, and let's keep paying the mission forward.
It's a little bit cliche, but just enjoy it. Playing those tournaments, going into them, I would be so nervous. I would hate playing every single tournament I went into because I'm like, I hate being this nervous. I hate that I care so much about it. And looking back on it, now that I haven't played a tournament in over a year, I'm thinking I would do anything to go back and feel that nervousness that I once felt. I would do anything to go back and care so much about something the way I did. Enjoy being out there. Enjoy the suck. Enjoy being nervous. Enjoy every little thing that you really do hate about this. And I would hope that I'd be able to understand that what that means.
What are you built to be? What are you built to become? The time is now. The time is right now. You weren't built to break. You were built to be something greater. Welcome to Season 2 of the BTB Project. I'm your host, Coleman Gearhart. I was the overweight kid, the one counted out, lost 100 pounds, found purpose in the pain, and turned my setbacks into a story worth telling. This podcast isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about identity, discipline, and comebacks. Getting up one more time and becoming who we're always meant to be. If you're ready to go deep, do the work, and live out what you're built to be, you're in the right place. Let's lock in, let's rise, and let's get to work.
Well, the BTB Project is back yet again. Today's guest is someone who learned at a young age that the journey to their dreams isn't always a straight line. He's a tennis player from the great state of Michigan, where he grew up competing at the highest levels of junior tournaments. I would consider him an all-star player, and I barely know him, but just doing my fact check online, this guy was winning state championships in high school with his team. He's competing at the highest level in both singles and doubles. And I cannot wait to get into his story about his accomplishments, but more importantly, how he overcome some unexpected news that changed his life. Brings me tremendous honor to welcome Jonah Chernett to the BTB Project.
Thank you for having me on, Coleman. It means a lot to be able to share my story with others.
Absolutely, man. Well, here I am just doom scrolling and come across this video of a young man that was learning how to walk again. I don't know the extent of it, but you woke up one day and your life was completely changed. I would love for you to start by telling the listeners about what happened that day and what did it feel like to know that something was off?
So since I was probably like 8, 9 years old, that's when I really knew I wanted to get serious into tennis. I started playing 4, 5, 6, then pretty much every day a week. And ultimately, when I was 12 or 13, I moved to Florida because of it. And I started training down there. I was obviously really serious about it, playing all these tournaments. College tennis was my dream. And if I felt like I was good enough, I could go pro, but that was pretty far away. But yeah, I was training quite a lot. And ultimately, what happened was in October of 2021, that's when I first started feeling these symptoms, but it kind of went back a couple of months, back to June, where I got the COVID vaccine, and then 2 weeks later, I got sick. And coming up was, I'm sure you're familiar with the tournament, Clay Court Nationals. It's a pretty big one for the juniors. And I wanted to play that tournament, even though I was pretty sick. I tried getting through my first round. I think I got halfway through my first set, and I just decided I couldn't because I couldn't breathe. My entire body was fatigued. I decided to pull out, but I just thought I was sick. I ended up taking 2 weeks off, doing completely nothing, just trying to relax. And when I came back in October, it was a little more than 2 weeks, but in October, which was probably, I was going very light for that following month. In October, when I came back, it kind of just happened out of nowhere, where I was doing mini tennis with my coach, and all of a sudden my legs felt like they were just on fire. I could not pick them up. It felt like there were 100-pound weights on each leg, and I was like, what the hell is going on? I had no idea what it was. I tried pushing through it, but just could not for a couple days. And then at first I thought it was just like any other injury I've had. I know it's not like your typical injury where you pull a hamstring or you have a shoulder issue where, it'll just heal over time. I thought it was more so just fatigue or overuse, and that I needed to just take a little bit of time off. But I did think I would be fine within weeks, and weeks go by. I don't feel better. Leads to my dad being concerned. Now he's like, okay, you're clearly not okay. We need to go check this out. And it led to this 9-10 month journey of going to all these doctor's appointments. I had 6 CT scans, 5 MRIs. Nobody knew what it was. There was nothing definitive, no proof that this is your issue. Ultimately, my pediatric neurologist thought nerve damage made the most sense. So about 10 months later, she prescribed this drug for me called Lyrica. It's used for a lot of different things. People with epilepsy take it, diabetics, nerve issues. But that helped me quite a lot. I was 85% better. So after almost a year, I was finally able to go back out and compete at close to the level I wanted to before, even though I still wasn't 100% healthy.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear what the symptoms felt like, because something that you and I actually have some similarities. What ended my career was this medical phenomenon. I blew out a disc in my back and get the MRI, and they said, "Oh yeah, you blew a disc, but by the way, you got this this mass in your spinal canal where you got to come back and do a contrast MRI." I'm like, all right. So I go do the contrast MRI, and I had a golf ball sized tumor in my spinal canal, and it's called a schwannoma neurosheath tumor. 1 in every 10,000 MRIs, you see them. And essentially when I had that taken out, they unfortunately nicked a little bit of the cord. So some of those symptoms of neuropathy and just kind of like drop leg on my left side, I kind of had to relearn a lot of the things that you faced, but still have your career ahead of you. So as I'm saying this, I mean, you're a high school kid. I was somewhat of an adult in my, early 20s. What did it feel like to think that this tennis thing might not be anymore for you?
To be honest, I was just in disbelief. Even after months of not knowing, I continued to believe that I will be okay. I'm going to get through this. My dad was one of my biggest supporters. He would go out with me and do what I could. He'd take out a hopper. We go to there's a local middle school 2 minutes from my house, and he would just hand feed me balls where I couldn't even bend my knees. I would just stand straight up and just massage the ball, get a feel for it. We would do that an hour every single day just so I could keep a feel. I would serve without bending my legs. I would do everything I could just to get at the level I was at before. But I still thought I was going to be okay. I didn't really go through that type of swing until later on when I did have my relapse.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I did end up getting better after 10 months.
I love the connection with your dad. I think that tennis, especially for us boys, it's always fun to have that first set or first win against your pops. Do you remember when that happened for you?
Well, my pops was never really much of a tennis player. He would play casually. He was more of a football player, which, to be honest, I wanted to play football, but he said no just because it was too dangerous. He had a lot of back issues now because of it. He had a couple concussions too. He just thought too dangerous, and tennis is a sport you can play lifelong, which I do not regret going into. Yeah. But I was beating him by the time I was 10 years old, which was a pretty good feeling. I know he was pretty pissed off because didn't really want to lose to your 10-year-old son, but I was beating him pretty early on. It was more so my brother that I was competing pretty hard with. He's about a year and a half older than me. We would be training with each other all the time. He ultimately decided to get more into running. He does he tries running all these ultra marathons and endurance races now. But when he was about 14 or 15, he stopped playing as much tennis and went more into that.
Gotcha. What inspired you to pick up the racket for the first time?
One of my closest friends from here, he was really big into tennis. His parents were big tennis players. His uncle was really good. He was playing all the time, and I honestly just wanted to be just like him. So I decided to pick up a racket, and that was my goal. Was like, I want to play just as good as him. So that was what led me to just first pick up a racket. But the more I played, the more I fell in love with the sport. But that was the initial reason.
Awesome. And in Michigan, obviously, I know it's a huge tennis hub. With back in the day, Kalamazoo being a hot spot for the national tournaments. Ultimately, at what point did you know that tennis was a sport that you wanted to see what you could exhaust?
Right when I started playing it.
Yeah.
Like 11, 12 years old, right when I knew I was like, okay, maybe I'm good enough. Because I played, those orange ball tournaments where it's like you play with half the court and it's like bounce hit. I remember my dad was coaching my brother's baseball game there, and my mom just dropped me off at that tournament. And it was like, oh, go have fun. You played tennis for like 2 years now. Don't know how good you are, but like go play one of these tournaments. And I ended up winning it. And then I go back and I'm like telling my dad, Dad, I won this tournament. And he was like, whoa. And then he has me play that tournament the next week again, and I win it again. And that was when I was like, maybe I am good at this sport. At that point, I started to train quite a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. We're going to dive deeper into some of the new information that you have about finally getting some answers of what has happened to you, which is awesome. But I know that as you're in this gray area of what could this be, and then obviously feeling the physical symptoms, I tip my hat to you because the whole time it seemed like you're pretty connected to your high school tennis program. Out here in Colorado, there's a little bit of an epidemic going on to where the higher UTR players feel like they gotta, stay away from high school tennis. It's not as competitive, so they'll just go on the UTR tournament train or PTTs, which I'm sure you're familiar with. But I have been coaching high school tennis for about 20 years, and ironically enough, we have a little bit of a connection with Nathan Gold, who decided to still play 3 years of high school tennis out here and is now playing at Cornell. But ultimately, when I say high school tennis and Jonah, what does it mean to you, man?
It's actually a little bit similar in Michigan now because a lot of the best players choose not to play. Like 5-10 years ago, Michigan high school tennis was really stacked. And when I played my freshman, sophomore year, there were probably only 3 top-end players. At the time, I was maybe my freshman year, maybe like a 10.5 UTR, and then there was an 11.5 and another 11. And after that, there was pretty steep drop-off. But like after that, it was more so after that first year, I just fell in love with the team, being on a team, just the thought of having other guys playing the sport with me, because my whole life I'd just been playing this individual sport. So knowing that there's other people supporting you, cheering you on, it really is a different feeling knowing that there's people behind you just like that. And that's why college tennis has always been a dream of mine, because you're with these guys, they're like your family. You're going everywhere with them. You have these team dinners. You're hanging out with them nonstop. So that's what really made me fall in love with high school tennis, and that's why I continue to play it.
And that was Bloomfield Hills. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Awesome, man. So if I am a spectator at a Bloomfield Hills tennis match, the year that you guys, I believe, won it all as a team, what was I seeing and why were you guys so successful?
Well, first off, our coach was great, Greg Burks. He was the one who brought our entire team together. Amazing coach. And also, I think it was more so just that everyone on the team knew each other already. So it wasn't just like, oh, get to know this guy, he's your teammate. We all knew each other. We were all super close. And I think even though the expectations were there, because our team won states 3 years in a row, it was really just, we're out here to just enjoy each other. Like, yeah, obviously states is the end goal, but we're having such an amazing time just being out here, really. And even my perspective, I know like this probably doesn't sound great, but high school tennis, I didn't care as much about the results in that because it doesn't count towards our UTR or any rating system on USTA. It doesn't really have any effect. So I was really just there to, obviously, I was going to give 100% every single time, but really just enjoy being out there, enjoy being with my teammates. And that's what really led us to winning those state championships.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to have on some pretty awesome college coaches with David Rodini down at TCU and Tony Bresky of Wake Forest, Dick Gould that I mentioned to you before we hopped on at Stanford, 17 national championships. And, you know, it's interesting because I do have a lot of listeners, Jonah, that are just like you, man. They're high school players that are inspiring to play college tennis. And we're going to get into the school you ultimately selected, but I'm curious, like in your recruiting process, how important was it to not only have just the UTR, but also have the character traits and tangibles that allow you to integrate into a team, into a culture to have success in college?
I'll be honest, during like the very beginning of recruiting, like in the summer of my sophomore year going into junior year, before I had this relapse, I was a little bit, I didn't really know. And I just thought, oh, let your skills do the talking, let your UTR do the talking, let your ranking do this. So I was so focused on like keeping my ranking high, keeping my UTR high. I was so focused on the results. I'd been that way a lot of my life up until I was maybe 15 years old. Before every single match, even if it was event, when I was just a little kid, I would throw up because I got so nervous because I cared so much about winning. And it wasn't until I had this relapse where it was really more so not just the results, but who you are as a character is why coaches go after you. And it really taught me something going through this entire thing. But also, obviously, your skills have to be a certain level. But once you reach that certain level, it comes down to the mental side and how resilient you are, not just how good you are. That's why I think the best pros are the best pros. That's why Djokovic was as good as he is, because he's like, I don't think it's debatable. He's the mentally toughest professional tennis player out there.
Yeah, and the mind is something that is hard to develop unless tennis is a very individualized sport. That's why the team dynamic is so interesting, because in college you basically have 6 individuals that are coming together. Most of them are typically from other countries too, right? So integrating that piece as well. But I want to stick on this mental tough side for a second, because let's just go back to you're playing the best tennis of your life before this all happened. You're a junior tennis player. You're climbing the ranks. In your opinion, what made you mentally tough?
Well, the way I played tennis, I was a little bit I was kind of one of those gritty guys who just dug those matches out when he really shouldn't be winning. Obviously, I always wanted to be as aggressive as I could, but I feel like I thrived in those moments where it's late in the third set, like your opponent, we're both exhausted, but who just wants it more? I think that's where I did better because I knew I'm not going to give this up. I want this more than you do. That was my mentality in every match, just because I cared a lot about the results, which I think is different now. I still just refused to let any point go. And I was so locked in on every little detail that I think that's what won me a lot of those huge matches.
And as you're climbing the ranks, what at that point do you think was ever going to hold you back from accomplishing the goal that you wanted? You know, I know before we hopped on, you said a school like Michigan was really high on your list, but obviously like you had really high D1 aspirations. Did you kind of have this delusionalness to you to where it's like nothing's going to stop me because you were a grinder and you knew you could hang with anyone?
Honestly, no. I think that was my biggest issue, was not being delusional. That's what everyone I talked to, they wanted me to be delusional, because before matches, I would go into them being scared, even if I'm playing someone who I should be beating 6-0, 6-0. Well, you shouldn't beat anyone 6-0, 6-0, but anyone where I feel like I'm a better player than them, I would be so nervous going into these matches, and I just almost had no confidence in my skill level until I actually stepped on that court. And that was one of my biggest issues, that I didn't have that. Like, my dad would always tell me that you need to have an ego when you're playing tennis. You got to believe that you're better than this person. not because you just have a right to get mad if you lose, but because it gives you that confidence to go out and do what you do best. And I didn't really have that until like when I really pulled that out of my toolkit was when it was like 4-4 in that third set when you needed it the most, because I'm like, all right, I'm a little bit more comfortable now. I know how this guy plays. I trust myself more than him. But going into those matches, that's why I was always a bit of a slow starter, because I was just so nervous for no reason. And that was what held me back the most.
Yeah, as a coach, I always am intrigued because I feel like most kids play their best tennis when their back's against the wall.
Mhm.
And the delusional word, I like that because I always try to coach how can you create that environment in the beginning of a match to where you feel like it's 4-all in the third, but you just spun the racket to see who serves first. Ultimately, have you bridged that gap a little bit with age and some of the things you've been through with your health?
I think 100%. After having, I know I haven't really gotten all the details on my whole history, but in again October of 2024, I had another relapse where my legs got worse again. That drug I was on, Lyrica, just completely stopped working. I remember I was still trying to just gut through practices, see if it would just magically get better. My last big tournament was Winter Nationals in December of 2024, and that was one of the biggest, most memorable tournaments of my life because I was trying so hard to prepare for that tournament in terms of just being healthy. I would take like a week off, but leading up to it, and I didn't practice until I took a full week off, and then I practiced Friday before that tournament, and I go into my match Saturday. I felt good for maybe one game, and then I was like, I can't play. I tried
Mm.
gutting through it a little bit, but I couldn't pick up my legs at all. I couldn't move. Everything was just I'm trying to slap for winners, which just is not my game at all. And at that point, I had all these coaches watching me. They see me and they're like, wow, this guy can't even move. What's his deal? And then they talk to me. I can't lie to them. I have to be honest about my issue.
Yeah.
And what really hurt me the most was that a lot of these coaches that were interested in me prior, they see me as damaged goods, which I mean, I don't blame them. If I was a coach, I would say, I don't want to take a risk on this guy. I don't know if he's going to be healthy. I don't know what his deal is. He has this mystery illness that just confuses me. I don't even understand what it even is when he explains it to me. There's just no point in taking him and seeing all these recruiters just lose interest. That's what hurt me the most. And really that during that search where I haven't played a tournament. Tried playing one tournament 2 months later, but again, I got through one match where I was literally about to collapse the whole time, and I ended up pulling out of that, and that was my last ever tournament, and still been searching for solutions then, but really, it's just shifted my perspective entirely because if I were to go out and play another match, I would never like, it's easier said than done, but I find it hard to really have that same fear that I once had when just being on the court playing a match, I was so privileged to be able to do that in the first place. In no world should I be so nervous to do that when this is what I love doing my entire life. If I can just get back on that court, I'm going to give it everything I have, absolutely, and just be happy, even winning or losing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, when I think about that, the nervousness that you felt and why you felt nervous and where it came from deeply resonates with me because I grew up very unsure of myself, incredibly self-conscious. I have an older brother just like you do. He's 4 years older and he used to kick my butt in every sport, basketball, baseball, football, and tennis rolled around and somehow, some way, I developed the skill set to beat my brother when he was a senior and I was a freshman in high school for the last spot on the varsity team. He proceeded to duct tape me to a flagpole afterwards, but that's when I like started to feel like that nervousness that I ever had, that I could overcome it. Now, for you, I want you to really dig deep here, Jonah, because I think it's important for the listeners to understand how you've been able to diagnose yourself per se. But if you think back and think of the nervousness that you had before some of the stuff that you've been through with your health, where do you think it really stemmed from?
deep down, I just think I've always been an anxious person. I mean, if you just see me on the outside, I look like I just could care less about most things in life, but I care a lot about the little things. That's just how I am, even though I don't always show it. I've always been one of those nervous people just without other people seeing it. I just deep down every little thing, even just like going out of my house, I'm like, am I going to see this person, that person? I've always been like that. And I think that's where it stemmed from a little bit. Not that I'm self conscious. I've always been a little bit more introverted. I keep to myself. I don't love getting put in those just awkward social situations. Now I'm definitely a lot better with that because of this experience. But
Yeah.
before, I'd always been a little bit more reserved, didn't really open up to people, just kept to myself, which is really not a healthy thing to do at all. And that's where a lot of it stemmed from, is that I just didn't every little thing I did, I was so nervous about. And especially tennis, the thing that my parents are putting all this money into and the thing that I'm devoting my entire life to. If I don't have this certain result, if I don't play a certain way, then I'm going to feel like this was just a complete failure.
Mm.
So that's where a lot of it really stemmed from.
It's totally fair. And I think you laid a good narrative of some of the nervousness you felt before having the health issues, to then kind of coming out of it, to then relapsing, to then, understanding maybe what the new normal is going to be for you. As I say that, I'd love for you to talk to me about what was the lowest point for you when you were fighting these health issues.
So after Winter Nationals, we went back on a search for what this could be, and for about 4 months, still nothing. I went all the way to the point where I went to Wyoming, and I had Botox injections in my thighs because this one doctor thought that my muscles were compressing the veins in my thighs and it restricted blood flow and my lactic acid levels were going up. That was the issue he thought it was. And he thought shrinking my muscles could help. I ultimately lost 15 pounds. My legs got even weaker and they did nothing. My parents spent all this money on it because insurance wasn't covering it. And after that, I felt defeated. I was like, what is the point of all this? I put all this time into tennis. I don't even know if I can live a normal life, because walking around, just going from downstairs to upstairs in my house, I had to sit down because I couldn't even do that. I couldn't actually live a normal life. Walking around in school, I had to hunch over going up the big staircase because it was such a brutal experience every single time. I didn't want to show other people, because the way I am, I don't want other people pitying me and being like, I'm so sorry for you. That's the thing I hate the most, is when I tell people about my story and they're like, I feel so bad for you. That's what really triggers me, is I don't want your sympathy. I don't regret anything that happened because it turned me into something much better than I was before. But honestly, my lowest point was when I saw all these coaches almost lose interest. I was thinking, do I even have a future in college tennis? I thought everything I had given up in my life was a complete waste. I went to Florida. I gave up not my entire social life, but I gave up my friends. I literally was training every single day, and I didn't have your typical normal childhood that most people do have. And I felt like that all went to waste. And that was one of my lowest points. And going back to what I said before, I'd never been the type of person to open up to people and really talk about it. And it was pretty challenging. And not to mention that I found out that a lot of people that I thought I was close friends with, and especially in the tennis community, I'm obviously not going to name names, but some of the people I would communicate with daily, they just vanished. I almost lost contact with these people because the second I stopped playing tournaments and stopped training, and they just didn't see me anymore, they just stopped thinking about me. They never reached out. I honestly have, even still, I have two of my friends that I really do genuinely trust and I think have been there for me. Even though I never was great at opening up to them, I know they were there for me, and especially, not to mention my family. My family has been one of my biggest supporters throughout this entire journey, and I don't think I would have gotten through it without them.
I tip my hat to you for, you say you're introverted, but being over 200 episodes into this podcast gig, you're one of the more well-spoken young men I've ever met in my life. So
Thank you.
Mom and dad are doing something right there, man. But ultimately, when I woke up from my back surgery, when they took the tumor out, and I was in my hospital bed and couldn't feel my legs, and had my first visitor. I had two visitors. It was my dad and my coach stopped by just to make sure I was all right. I didn't see any of my teammates. A few weeks later, I saw my best friend who was unrelated to tennis, but I felt that same thing, man. It's almost like tennis in some cases was an identity. And then the moment that that identity gets taken away or pulled away from someone, you find out who your real friends are. So I appreciate you sharing the lowest of lows, but I'm going to hype you up in the podcast art, watching you play tennis, at least some of the photos I've seen. You were fit, man. And I know you still are fit because no slouch is going to be able to walk on and play at Penn. But ultimately, give me the exact opposite end of the spectrum. When it came to your fitness and your work ethic, how did you develop your body the way that you did?
That was one of my biggest strong suits, is that I took such great care of my body. I cared so much about those little things. I would be on such a good diet, super strict. I would be lifting all the time. Obviously, my legs, I feel like my upper body, if I wanted to, I bulk up too easily. So I tried staying away from lifting up here too much, but I took pride in my legs. I had really big legs. I was really muscular. And after those Botox injections, they shrunk, which they're kind of small now, which isn't great. But before, that's what I took pride in. That's why I felt like when it's 4-4 in that third set, who wants it more? I knew I was going to win because I'm just in better shape than you. I'm going to outlast you. That's what I really took pride in. And I think that's what won me most of those matches.
Nutrition wise, this is always a fun one because, being young, you can get away with some poor eating habits, whether it's metabolism or genetics, so on and so forth. If you had to give advice to an inspiring junior tennis player or an athlete in general who's trying to figure it out, what are your tips and tricks and kind of your 101 on nutrition?
You have to know your own body. I would say my whole diet, I like to eat a lot. I'm definitely not an undereater. I will eat quite a lot. I like to make my own food as well. So I would go really heavy on protein and pasta. That would be my meal most nights. I would make my own like Alfredo without cream, or I would do stuff without all that extra butter, cream, whatever it is, to try and stay lean. And then also when I did splurge, because everyone splurges, I would go pretty heavy on those splurges. I remember like once a month I would get like a king size bag of, it's like probably 400 grams of sugar of these like airhead gummies. And I would just snack on those on my off day when I'm not playing a tournament on like a random Sunday. And I would wake up and my face would be so swollen. I would look like the Incredible Hulk if he just retired. Like I completely would let myself go on those random days. And that's what motivated me to stay disciplined throughout the rest of the week, where I can look forward to this day where I'm going to absolutely splurge and eat like complete shit.
Yeah.
But when I did need to stay disciplined, I knew that like I'm putting all this time into tennis, I might as well take care of the little things that matter. So I didn't want to just have a shitty diet and then go out and cramp in a match or like not be in the right shape. That's one of those stupid things that you just should not be letting go at all if you're an elite level player.
I appreciate you sharing that perspective, and let's connect the dots now. So you have a health issue that was undiagnosed for many years. You have relapses in between. If you could walk the listeners through what you believe caused this to now the new information of what you know now, I'd love for you to connect those dots for us.
So at the start, I had COVID and the vaccine in back-to-back weeks. And then that's when I was super fatigued. I decided like I needed to take some time off. And when I came back, the analogy I like to give for what I feel is as if you're on a Peloton and you're finishing up a 45-minute workout. You're just gutting through it and you're feeling that burn.
Yeah,
you know
climbing the leaderboard, man. Yeah,
exactly. That's what it feels like after just 10, 20 seconds of walking for me. My legs are just on fire. That's what it feels like just after seconds. So it's definitely not ideal at all, but Thought it was from COVID or the vaccine, one of those two. And when I went on my search the first year, didn't find anything. No test results came back positive, but that drug I was on, Lyrica, obviously helped quite a lot. So kind of just brushed off that, oh, maybe I'll just be on this the rest of my life. And when it stopped working, October of 2024, still tried gutting through it. Maybe it would just get better randomly. It didn't. Starting from January up until even still today, I've been to a lot of different places. I've been to Orlando, Florida, Wyoming. I went to Stanford. I'm probably forgetting a lot of places. I went to UVA, Massachusetts, but done a lot of different tests. Went to the Cleveland Clinic, I think 6 separate trips. And then I've been through quite a lot too, because they actually had this. One of the trips I went there, they did a CT scan and they had a false flag for a tumor. They thought I had a tumor in my stomach. And for a full week, I thought, okay, is cancer the cause of my issue? Have I just had cancer my whole life and didn't know? And then I go back a week later and they're like, oh, it's a false flag. Wasn't anything. So that was a big roller coaster to go through. And I've heard different things. Like I did this thing called PVR test, where they would hook up these ultrasound. They would all do an ultrasound on my legs and see how much blood flow I'm getting. Then they'd have me walk in a treadmill for 2 minutes until I just couldn't anymore. Then I would hop off and then they would immediately scan me again. They saw that my lactic acid levels went up like, I think it was 70% in both legs, which they said is the same amount as a person who just ran a marathon. And that was after 2 minutes of walking on a treadmill. So they saw that. But then also they said I had this thing called vasospasms, where my arteries, they would constrict anytime I'm exercising. I've heard a lot of different stuff. I tried going on medication for it. None of that really helped. As of recently, about 2.5 months ago, I went all the way to Boston for this genetic testing. They thought that maybe something could trace back to my DNA, something I just inherited. And ultimately, I just got these results back less than a week ago, but
Wow.
I have this thing called a DLD deficiency, where my muscles, I just can't produce any energy on a cellular level. And I'm also unable to digest in all these proteins and amino acids. So what the doctor told me is that I need to be on all these supplements. So right now I'm taking, I think, 5 or 6 different forms of vitamin B12. And also I have to completely change my diet. I've always been a pretty big meat eater. I love making steak, pasta, or steak, shrimp, or chicken, lamb, all these different types of meats. And I can't eat meat anymore. I have to completely give up steak, chicken, all these proteins with branched chain amino acids, the things I can't digest. So I have to go on an entirely pescatarian diet. He said I can have like as much seafood as I want, but I can't have any meat at all whatsoever. So right now I'm eating just a can of sardines like 3 times a day. That's my source of protein, which I find disgusting, but I have to. And then also I'm supposed to go gluten-free, so I can't have gluten anymore. And my mom, so every single day she's making me like these disgusting foods in my opinion, but I mean, they're going to help me. So every single morning I just have plain barley with nothing on it. And I find it disgusting. I'm not a fan of beets, but I have to eat beets daily. And then she makes me like she chops up ginger and garlic that I just have to eat whole. It's not fun at all, but I do, just within days of doing this, I do feel slightly better. So I'm hoping that this can continue to get better. It's still unknown as to, is this the entire cause of my issue, or is it the vasospasms, or is it me just not getting enough blood flow to my legs? Maybe it's a combination of all these different things, but I've had all these different tests and I've seen different things. These supplements and this diet is the first thing that has actually helped me a decent bit besides the Lyrica. So I'm optimistic now for the future. Obviously, I'm going to the University of Pennsylvania next year. I'm hoping to be healthy by the time I'm there so I can train and give it everything I have. But that's been pretty much my entire journey since the start.
Dude, beets and sardines. That's a whole nother level right there, man.
Yeah. If anything, though, it'll get me back in shape because since being back, I've put on some pounds. I need to slim out now.
So wrapping up your high school career, I'm just curious, if I were your high school coach and observed you your senior year with your teammates, how would your teammates describe you?
It's hard to say. I think you'd hear different things from different people. My freshman and sophomore year, I played 1 singles at my school. Junior year, I actually didn't play. I was in Florida the full time, just training. because that was the biggest year for recruiting. And senior year, I played this past season, and I couldn't play singles. I just could not at all. I played doubles, and even playing doubles, my legs weren't great. I had to ultimately serve and then resort to just slapping every single shot at the net player and hoping that they just weren't good enough to volley it back at my teammate. Yep. So that was my approach the whole time, and it ultimately worked. We won a state championship at one doubles, but I think my teammates would describe me as I've always been a little bit more quiet, but since this happened, I think I've been a little bit more encouraging, outgoing, and trying to help other people in whatever ways I can, even if they're not going through something similar to me. I feel like it's made me a little bit more caring about other people because I know everyone's going through their own issue. Like you could be walking by someone random on a street and you don't know what they're going through. That's what I would think every single day. I'd be walking, just trying to walk, and I'd see people and I'm like, they don't know anything about me. They don't know what I'm going through. So maybe I should be a little bit more caring about other people. If I see someone's going, if they don't look too happy, like just think about it. Like maybe they have their own issues going on, and everyone's so self-absorbed. That's what I've learned throughout this whole process because when this happened, nobody reached out to me. I realized that everyone just cares about themselves. Nobody cares about you. And that's what made me a little bit more resilient, is that the only person to get me out of this is myself. Obviously, I still had the support system of my family and a couple of my close friends, but nobody is going to get me through this besides myself. And I realized that everybody I know is fake. Like nothing really matters. You just have to be the person to get yourself out of this, and you have to do whatever you can to get through these tough moments.
That's well said. It's hard words to hear. I'm a habitual people pleaser, so I'm always wanting to make people happy. And ultimately, yeah, you find out who's really there for you when push comes to shove and things are hard. Just makes me think of a young gal that I coached who survived 7 brain tumors that were removed on her cerebellum. She was a really good junior tennis player, was able to come back, but she basically had paralysis on her right side. So she had to learn how to hit a cross-handed forehand because she couldn't be stable with her right hand anymore. Came back and played high school tennis, but only could play doubles. And believe it or not, the state of Colorado was giving her a hard time because she was having success in doubles, but knew her as a junior player when she was playing singles and was wondering why she was playing doubles. She should be playing singles. I share that because I'm curious, did the state of Michigan give you a hard time for dropping down to 1 dubs your senior year?
Well, thankfully, I didn't have to go through that much. I talked to my coach about it, and he basically told me, for you to be able to play 1 doubles, we have to say that you lost your challenge match. Yeah. So the guy that played 1 singles this year, basically we put that he beat me in our challenge match.
Yeah.
And I ended up playing 1 doubles. So that's what happened. I don't really care that much about it. Like, I know what my level is. I'm not going to say anything about that, but that's pretty much what happened.
I got you, man. So ultimately you closed the chapter here with high school. I know you're less than a few months away from graduating. I would love for you to share UPenn. How did this opportunity come about? Tell me about that recruiting process, and how was it different as far as how it felt to talk to the UPenn coach compared to that feeling at tournaments, seeing these coaches doubt you because you're fighting what you were fighting with your health?
So UPenn was always one of my top schools. Super interested in going there. I've always dreamt of going to an Ivy League, and I was getting recruited by them pretty heavily when I was playing and I was healthy. But ultimately, when I did have my issue and I stopped playing tournaments, I didn't really hear anything from anybody for about like a 7-8 month period. And then over the summer, pretty much one of my close family friends who he played under the Penn's coach at Columbia when Penn's head coach was the assistant there. They were talking, and the coach asked my friend, what happened to Jonah? I saw he hasn't played a tournament in a while. And then my friend updated him on my whole story, and he ended up reaching out to me. It was like, please tell me like about everything that happened, and just wanted to get to know me better. I talked it over with him. Ultimately, I think the reason that, I don't want to put words in his mouth, so I'm not going to say anything about that, but having someone like me on the team, it's a different perspective because most people on any college team, like these guys have gone through like very similar experiences. They've trained their whole life for this sport. A lot of all they know is tennis, and it's just been tennis their whole life. And for me, I'm not trying to just toot my own horn or anything like that, but I had a different experience where I feel like I can maybe help out the team, and like it's a different perspective on the team having someone who's been through something as challenging as I went through, and knowing that, okay, I'm going to be forever grateful. If I can even just play a match, I'm going to be happy to be out there. And I think on any college team, a lot of these guys are so focused on being in the lineup or like winning these matches, the little things like that, that to me, they just don't matter anymore. I'm just happy to be there. And if I can even just play a match or practice with the team, I am completely fine with that. And obviously, if I do get healthy, I'm going to do everything I can to make that starting lineup. But ultimately, if whatever happens, I'm just going to be happy to be healthy if that's the case. So it's nice to have a different perspective on the team. And I think the Penn coach saw that, and he's like, wow, we're really interested. If you do get better, you can definitely help us out on the tennis side of things. But also, it's really good to have someone like you on the team, because it's just not what we traditionally have. So I think that was what led up to me committing to Penn.
Jonah, what did it feel like for you and I'm thinking about what you shared with kind of how this all started and the importance of ranking, the importance of winning tournaments or status with your development, to having this coach from Penn pick up the phone and say, tell me your story. Tell me what happened. What did it feel like for you to have someone not want to know about where you're at with your ranking or your latest UTR tournament, but just wanted to know how you were doing as a person?
I was in complete disbelief, because I knew my entire life, obviously people would tell me, oh, they care more about your character, they care more about this, but I just didn't believe it. I just thought it was all just bullshit to make me not care about winning or losing. And when I got that offer, I just was like, why do they want to take me? If I was a coach, I would not want to take someone like that, because he's not going to contribute anything. Well, he might, but I don't know. It's too much of a risk. That's what I thought. And after really getting that offer and realizing, okay, he's taking me for a different reason besides just my ranking, that's where it really shifted my perspective. And I was like, wow, like it really is just more than tennis. It's a lot more than that. And I feel like a lot of people even still have that same perspective that I once had, where it's like all they care about is the ranking, this, that. I see people who they never really got recruited because they were just terrible people. They were amazing top 10 recruits in the country, but they just were insufferable to be around. And I think that was the reason why a lot of coaches just weren't interested. And I see that happen. And I'm like, wow, it really is a lot about who you are as a person and not just your tennis game. So definitely changed the way I thought.
You know, I've noticed something throughout this entire conversation, man. You got, I believe, a Jordan poster behind you about to throw down.
Yeah.
I'm a big, oh yeah, it looks like it's
That's
a Heat
actually
guy. That's LeBron, huh?
LeBron.
There you
Not
go.
Jordan, no. Yeah, don't insult me like that. I think LeBron is the GOAT.
Yeah, there you go, man. See, I'm creating the that's an interesting topic of Jordan or LeBron, but LeBron doing what he's doing at his age right now is just crazy. But ultimately, you know, you think about this next chapter of your life and what motivates you. I mean, ultimately, if you had to paint the picture of what your college tennis career is going to look like, when you're all said and done, you're graduating from UPenn, hopefully, what defines success in your eyes, thinking back on that?
Honestly, it has nothing to do with tennis. My entire goal, I want to get healthy. I want to be able to live a normal life. And if I do get healthy, I'm going to give everything I have to that tennis team. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that team is as successful as they can be. Like it has nothing to do with any of my goals at this point. I just want to be healthy, and I want to contribute as much as I can to this team, because the coaches, they're taking a risk on me. They're trusting me, and I want to prove to them that I can contribute to them what I should be able to. And that's my entire goal, is I want to be the best person I can be. I want to be the best teammate I can be and control the things that I can control. That's something my dad has always preached to me, and I never really took it in until now. But some things in life you just can't control, like the results. And I want to focus on giving 100% to the things that I can control. So that's my entire perspective. And if I can give 100% to everything, then I'll be happy. I'll define that as successful for my college career.
All right, man. Last one for you. So you're sitting on a bench at a national tournament. I don't know, 12s, 14s, and maybe you just got absolutely rocked the first set. You're feeling discouraged, and who you are now, 17, 18-year-old guy, you have what you believe is a diagnosis now of what this has been for you and what you can potentially put together to help you moving forward. But if you had an opportunity to go to that young man before all this happened, knowing what you know now, and sit on that bench, what advice would you give to them?
It's a little bit cliche, but just enjoy it. That was playing those tournaments, going into them, I would be so nervous. I would hate playing every single tournament I went into because I'm like, I hate being this nervous. I hate that I care so much about it. And looking back on it, now that I haven't played a tournament in over a year, I'm thinking I would do anything to go back and feel that nervousness that I once felt. I would do anything to go back and care so much about something the way I did. So I would just tell myself I would just say, enjoy being out there, enjoy the suck, enjoy being nervous, enjoy every little thing that you really do hate about this. And I would hope that I'd be able to understand what that means.
I often say on the BTB project that impossible is nothing. What does that mean to you?
Impossible means, sounds like it. You just said it. Impossible means nothing. Nothing is out of your reach. Obviously, there's things that you can't control, like I just said, but whatever you put your mind to that you know you can accomplish if you just put your head down and work at it, you can do it. Like, there is nothing that is impossible to anyone, really. And I think a lot of people, especially me, I struggled with just not having that belief in yourself. And obviously, as a person, you want to be just like nice and caring. But when you're playing your sport, whatever you're doing, I think having that ego, believing that you're better than the person opposite to you, that it just elevates your game that much more because you play more relaxed. When you know, I'm going to beat this guy no matter what, even if I am down 6-0, 5-0, I would still tell myself, I'm going to beat this guy because I know I'm better than him. And having that belief throughout an entire match or whatever sport this is, it's going to elevate your game that much more.
Well, UPenn is getting a good one, man, whether it's contributing as a tennis player or just sharing some perspective. That coach and those guys are lucky to have you. Jonah, unbelievable story, man. I'm so glad that you at least have some answers. Sounds like you got a lot of work to do, but you're up for the challenge. Inspirational story, state champ, UPenn commit, Jonah Chernett. Thank you so much, man, for joining me on the BTB project.
Thanks again for having me. I love sharing my story to anyone that I can help. So it means a lot that you're willing to have me on your platform.
Awesome, man.